Hello everyone, welcome to Keli College of Commerce. I, Professor Sneha Hiremat, lecturer in Commerce, would like to introduce Business Studies Part 1 Foundations of Business of your PUC1 syllabus. The first chapter is Business, Trade and Commerce. Concept of business. What is a business? It is usually been derived from the word busy, which means that being busy. The business means being busy. However, in a specific sense, business is referred to an occupation in which people regularly engage in activities related to purchase, production, and or sale of goods and services with a view to earning profits. The activity may consist of production or purchase of goods for sale or exchange of goods or supply of services to satisfy the needs of other people. Let's take an example. A factory owner who is producing school bags for sale in the market. This activity of a factory owner can be called as a business. Why? Because he is engaging himself in the purchase or the production of school bags. In order to produce school bags, he is purchasing the raw materials required, and then he is intended to sell those ready-made school bags or the finished products in the market in order to earn profit. And this is called as an economic activity, wherein which there is an exchange of goods or supply of services in order to satisfy the needs of the other people, and this is done in order to earn the livelihood for that particular factory owner. Whereas if we compare the same thing with that of a person begging at a busy traffic intersection, then it cannot be called as a business because he is involved in begging, and that is nowhere relating to satisfy any of the other people, and it is cannot be called as an economic activity, even though it is involving in order to earn the livelihood. There is no purchase or sale of goods to satisfy the needs of other people, and it is not done for the sake of profit also. And in every society, people undertake various activities to satisfy their needs. These activities are broadly classified into two groups: economic and non-economic activities. Economic activities. Economic activities are those by which we can earn our livelihood, that is involving in the production and the sale of goods and services, that is undertaken with the motive of earning profit by satisfying human needs in society. Hence, business is referred to an economic activity. And the non-economic activity here It is nothing but it's an activity performed out of love, sympathy, sentiment, patriotism, etc. For example, a housewife cooks food for her family, or a boy if he is helping an old man to cross the road. All these performance or all these activities are relating to the non-economic activities. Why? Because it is done out of love or sympathy. Hence, it is called as an non-economic activity. What are the characteristics of business activities? The important features of business activities are: the first is business has the very important feature, that is it is an economic activity. It is considered to be an economic activity. Why? Because it is undertaken with the objective of earning money or the livelihood, not out of love, affection, sympathy, or any other emotions. It is mentioned that this activity can be undertaken, it may be undertaken either on a small or on an individual level, but this is an economic activity. Purchase and sale by a shopkeeper or on large scale in a more formal and organized level, maybe by a cooperative society or a company. All these activities are called as an economic activities because it is done for the objective of earning money. The second feature is production or procurement of goods and services. Business has this important feature, that is before goods are offered to people for consumption, that is in order to serve their need, to satisfy their need, there must be either produced, that is the goods must be either produced or they must be procured by the business enterprise. That is, it the business enterprise may produce the goods themselves in the premise or in the factory, or they may collect or gather the product and resell the same product for profits. Thus, every business enterprise either manufactures the goods it deals or acquires them from producers to be further sold to consumers or users. Goods may consist of consumable items like such as sugar, ghee, pen, notebook, etc. Capital goods are also involved. Here there is a classification, that is consumable goods and capital goods like machinery, furniture, etc. Services also includes facilities like which are offered to consumers by the business firms or the organizations in the form of transportation, banking, insurance, electricity. So this is called as production or procurement of goods and services. Third is sale or exchange of goods and services. Directly or indirectly, business involves transfer or exchange of goods and services for value. Here, directly involvement by a business enterprise, that is, the goods which are manufactured or produced in the premise are sold by the enterprise itself. If not, they may hire any agents or the middlemen in order to sell those goods. So that is, we call it as a indirectly involved in selling or transferring those goods for the value. That value may be received through the agent. If goods are produced not for the purpose of sale but for the personal consumption, it cannot be called as a business activity. Just like an example which I had quoted, that is, cooking food at home for the family is not a business. Cooking food and selling it in others in a restaurant, it can be called as a business. Thus, one essential characteristic of business is that there should be sale or exchange of goods or services between the seller and the buyer. Dealings in goods and services on a regular basis. Business involves dealings in goods or services on a regular basis. That is, one single transaction of sale or purchase does not constitute business. If a person sells his or her cell phone even at a profit, it will not be considered as a business activity. But if he or she sells cell phone that sets regularly either through a shop or from his or her residence, it will be regarded as a business activity. In short, one time sale cannot be called as a business. Regularly selling or the exchange of goods, we call it as a business. The important and the unique feature is profit earning. One of the main purpose of business is to earn income by way of profit. No business can survive for the longer without the profit. That is why businessmen make all possible efforts to maximize profits, either by increasing the volume of sales or by reducing the costs. Sixth point, that is uncertainty of return. Uncertainty of return. It refers to the lack of knowledge relating to the amount of money that the business is going to earn in a given period. Because the businessman will not be knowing what will happen in the future. He'll not be aware that his invested money will be returned, and if it is returned, how much will be the return on investment that he has made. So every business needs some capital to run its activities, to earn profits, but it is not certain that as to what amount of profit will be earned. Also, there is always a possibility of losses being incurred despite the best efforts put into the business. The last feature and that is the element of risk is a feature of business activities. Risk is uncertainty associated with an exposure to loss. Here, what is a risk? Risk is a situation or an event and that leads to loss when it is unfavorable or it is undesirable to a businessman. Risks are related to the factors like if there is a change in the consumer's taste, fashion, or if there is any change in the method of production, if strikes or lockouts at the workplace, any new competitors, if they enter in the market, that is increased competition in the market, loss that may occur due to the natural calamities as well as fire, theft, accidents, etc. All these are called as a risk, which is uncertain and that may lead to loss. And no business can altogether do away with the risks. So, this was all about the characteristics of business activities. Comparison of business, profession, and employment. First question is, can we say business and profession as well as employment are altogether the same meaning, having the same meaning? No. Business is an economic activity. Even profession is also an economic activity. Employment can also be called as an economic activity. But the word profit arises only in risks in business, whereas in profession it is a quite different meaning than business, wherein profession means it requires certain qualification, whereas employment again it has a different perspective and has got a different meaning compared to business and profession. Let's compare one by one. First point, basis for difference is mode of establishment. Business, entrepreneur's decision. An entrepreneur's decision is a business and it requires other legal formalities if it is necessary. Profession, membership of professional body, certificate of practice is required. Either it is a chartered accountant or any legal advisor or maybe a medical profession, it is having a professional body. It also requires a certificate of practice. Whereas in case of employment, its establishment or the relationship between employer and employee comes with an appointment letter and the service agreement. That makes a relationship between an employer and employee, and that activity is called as an employment. The nature of work. The nature of work. Here in business, as we have seen that there would be provision of goods and services to the public. In case of profession, he or she, the professional, renders his personalized or the expert services that he has acquainted in his qualification or in his training, and the certificate which is being granted by that professional body. So that allows him to render his personalized expert services. In case of employment, the nature of work would be he is supposed to perform the work as per the contract or as per the agreement, wherein which the rules of services will be mentioned. Third important basis is qualification. Qualification. Here, the qualification is not required in case of business. There is no minimum qualification as such. Whereas in case of profession, yes, qualification, expertise, training in that too specific field as per the prescribed by that professional body is a mandatory. Whereas in case of employment, it differs which job description it is or which job it is, for which place it is. Qualification and training, it will be prescribed by the employer. Return or reward? Yes, for bearing risk, that is, risk would be the reward would be for a businessman to for bearing a risk is the profit. The reward is a profit in case of business. In case of profession, it's a professional fees, and that depends on the rapport of that professional. As per the agreement or the contract, salary or wages will be the return for a employee that will be given by an employer. Capital investment. Capital investment is a required, and it depends on the size of the business and the nature of the business. If it is a sole proprietorship, a single person invest, and there is again a classification where if he is doing it on a large scale, he requires more. If he is doing it on a small scale, he requires less. If it's a partnership, two or more partners commence the partnership business. If it's a joint stock company, where if it is a public company, public invest the money and they become the shareholders. So there would be capital investment in case of business. Profession, yes, limited capital is needed for the establishment, either for a chartered accountant or for the lawyer or that is a barrister. They require certain capital for their establishment. But for the employment, there is no such capital required to give his service under that employer through that contract. No capital is required for any employee. Risk. Risk profits are uncertain and they are irregular. Risk is present in case of business. Why? Because the future is uncertain. The amount that is invested by a businessman is not assured for him. Whereas in case of profession, fee is generally regular, it will be fixed, and it will be certain. But there exists some sort of a risk. Fixed and regular pay for an employee by his employer. So there is no risk, or there would be little risk associated in case of employment. As compared to business and profession, there is lesser, very less risk involved in the employment. Transfer of interest. No, there is a transfer possible with some formalities. Yes, business can be transferred. That is what we call it as acquisitions or mergers that take place. If a person is interested and wants to take over another person's business, then yes, the takeovers, mergers, acquisitions happens. Profession, no, there is no such transfer of interest. A person who is qualified and has passed examination conducted by that particular professional body, he becomes a professional. He will be getting the certificate of practice. So there would not be any kind of a transfer of interest. He cannot transfer that certificate to any other person who doesn't possess any qualification, or even if he possesses that qualification, he cannot use the same certificate for the practice. So transfer of interest is not possible in case of profession. Even in case of employment, he is involved and has agreed for all the rules and has entered into agreement with his employer, that is employee agrees with the employer. So transfer of interest is not possible. He cannot transfer his job to any other person. So transfer of interest is not possible even in case of employment. Lastly, the code of conduct. No code of conduct is prescribed for a businessman or for the business activity, but professional code of conduct is followed and it is prescribed by the professional body. Code of conduct means, for example, a doctor, when he enters his profession, he takes an oath wherein which he promises that he protects his patient. Even a legal advisor is supposed to protect the interest of his clients. So that becomes a code of conduct that has to be followed by a professional. Whereas in case of employment, code of conduct is nothing but the norms or the rules of behavior that are laid down by the employer and which has to be followed according to the contract which he has entered with that of his employer. Hence, the norms behavior is has to be followed by the employee as well as by the employer if agreed between them. The chart showing business activities. This is a chart which is showing business activities. Business is classified into two broad categories, that is industry and commerce. Industry, again, it has been subclassified into three, that is primary industry, secondary industry, tertiary industry. Primary industry is again classified into two, extractive genetic industry. Secondary industry is classified into two, that is manufacturing and construction industry. Under manufacturing there are sub-classifications, that is analytical, synthetical, processing and assembling industries. There are no classifications under construction industry, that is under secondary industry. Tertiary, there are no sub-classification. And the second under business is commerce. Commerce is again divided into two, that is trade and auxiliaries to trade. Trade is subclassified into two, internal and external trade. Internal trade, that is wholesale and retail. External trade, that is outside the country, import, export and entrepot. Auxiliaries to trade, that are aids to trade. Transportation, warehousing, advertising, insurance and banking and finance. So all these are the aids or the auxiliaries to this trade. Let's see one by one. Industry. What is an industry? Industry refers to economic activities which are connected with the conversion of resources into useful goods. That is, conversion of semi finished goods or raw materials into finished goods or the useful goods. Generally, this term industry it is used for the activities in which mechanical appliances and technical skills are involved. These include activities relating to producing, processing of goods, as well as breeding and raising of animals. The term industry is also used to mean groups of firms producing similar or related goods. For example, let's take cotton textile industry. This cotton textile industry is called so because it is referring to all the manufacturing units producing the textile goods from the raw material that is cotton. So, this industry, the term industry, is also used to mean groups of firms. That is, cotton textile industry, groups of firms producing similar or related goods. That is, it is similar goods are produced or the related goods using a raw material that is cotton. Using that material, related goods will be produced by that industry. Hence it is called as a industry, one particular industry where there are groups of firms. Groups of firms make an industry. Similarly, electronic industry that includes all the firms producing electronic goods. Industries are subclassified into three broad categories, that is primary industry, secondary industry and tertiary industry. This will be continued in the next video. Thank you all.